August 25th, 2021. I'm back in it. Now we're at the Freightliner truck, right? So Freightliner can be a cool truck because of its ease to find parts. Many of the TA Petros are Freightliner service points, and they stock Freightliner parts. A truck I would consider buying second to Generation 1 Volvo would be a 1990 to 2003 model Freightliner Columbia or Freightliner Classic. But the older Columbias have a reputation for being pretty cheaply made on the inside. When you look into someone's old Columbia, especially like 2004 and previous, chances are parts of the door and cabinets will be missing, stuff like that. And this was just really well kept. This is nothing too crazy, of course, when it comes to business, using our truck as a tool for business. So, that's where we get kind of like the term freight shakers and stuff like that. But yeah, there's still many old Columbias and Classics getting up and down the road. It's a great money making owner operator truck. So, like I say right here, just one thing to always remember when looking for trucks and stuff is just when a man finds a truck that makes him money, a lot of guys, they just keep that truck. They keep that truck for pretty much forever. Just keep going with it, right? So pros with these Freightliners, parts tend to be more available, widely available, right? Parts tend to be cheaper. That's what it seems. From talking to guys and seeing parts, and just because really when there's more availability, that's when we usually tend to find a cheaper price. But we got the older Freightliners, which had Detroit 60s and N14s. Probably a couple of these older Freightliners even had the old Cat 6 and Z's in there, maybe the 3406s. Freightliners tend to be cheaper to purchase than other brands. Just seems to be a commonality there when truck shopping. Some of the cons we say here, which is like Freightliners don't really hold their resale value as well as other brands. Older Freightliner Columbias tend to be more cheaply made on the inside, or at least that's the reputation they've gained. So maybe not as well put together on the inside. Let's just say that. All right, so that's just a quick rundown on Freightliner. I'm pro Freightliner Columbia, pro Freightliner Classic. Some of the past 2004 and up, maybe into like 2008, but after 2008, I'd probably skip over most Freightliners until we get into about 2018 again, or whenever they start into the next generation, whenever Cummins released their X15 time frame. That is if you just want to come straight in and get to making, I think a higher chance of money right away, in a higher profit margin, without having to take on so much in the beginning. International. Let's talk about International Truck. It's an old company, right? They've been around making trucks since pretty much the beginning of trucking. Not only do they make over-the-road Class 8 semis, but they produce many vehicles and trucks for the military. Even though International failed miserably with the ProStar model. I sound like one of the journalists, and you stop writing like that. But even though International didn't do so well with the Max Force motor, right? It has made some great models over the years. Yep. So that Max Force, there we go again, just probably worth avoiding. I'll just say that much. The International 9400 Eagle, right? This 9400 Eagle, it's a pretty popular pre-emission truck, especially in the old school owner operator crowd. The ones made before 2003. So the 9400 models after 2003 were nice, they were fine. They just didn't have pre-emission motors. The ProStar with the 870 and the 871 Cummins has been a great choice for some. This is the truck that Ross, who I mentioned earlier, he has the ProStar. Very aerodynamic truck. and can run well off the ISX when it's able to breathe and is taken well care of. Yeah. So he really highlights the fact, right, of the aerodynamic that's hard to beat. The ProStar can really put out some great fuel mileage, some MPG when the motor is tuned right. Okay. So we're still rolling here. We got the pros of these internationals. They've maintained a great reputation for putting out quality built trucks. I like the 9400 Eagle as a pre-emission truck. The ProStar is very aerodynamic. The ProStar model is very, very aerodynamic for those looking for ways to increase their fuel mileage. The cost of a used international tends to be right in the middle of the used truck price market. Cons: watch out for the Max Force engine. Didn't do too well, and not too many others. There's not too many negative things that I can say about the international. They've been around making it happen, and I do like this 9400 Eagle as the pre-emissions. So let's do some talking about Kenworth. Kenworth is like sister company to Peterbilt. PACCAR is the manufacturer of Kenworth and Peterbilt. One thing that's convenient about this PACCAR operation, right, is that by owning a Peterbilt, you can buy parts at Kenworth sometimes, and at Kenworth you can buy parts at Peterbilt because of the PACCAR parenting company. So sometimes you can, sometimes you can, and sometimes it's not. But hey, there's one thing: when I was own my Peterbilt, I would never hesitate to call a Kenworth dealer to see if we could like cross-reference some part numbers and get something going with like a TRP part or something. Yep. Kenworth has two really popular pre-emission trucks, which is of course the W900 and the T600. I was really considering a T600 at one time, and it still catches my attention as a great-looking money maker. Yep, when I see those trucks going up and down the road, especially when I see a little bit of chrome on it maybe, and someone taking care of it. Yeah, I know they got a good one. Those T600s came out at the same time as the Generation 1 Volvos. Just flat side down the middle. Yeah. I would probably never own one though, personally, because I test drove one years ago and I didn't really like how tall up the driving position is and how little the windshield is. So it was like reduced my visibility. It made me feel a little too separated from the ground. I was sitting low and looking over the steering wheel. Maybe it would be different now. I haven't sat in one in a while, but I did like how the bed would drop down. It has a seat. It drops down into the back, the bunk area. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I say here guys drive the T600s and the newer T660s out here all the time, every day. So it's just another personal preference one, but the T600 is a cool truck. W900 retains its value, as we're talking about here. It's not aerodynamic, right, or very fuel efficient, but it's another classic long hood truck of America. So yeah, we got the 379, the W900, and the FLD classics too. They hold their own. Many older guys still love the W900 and drive them in their glory years of trucking, as I like to call it. The guys who've been out here and put their time in, maybe 20 years in or something, 30 years in, and paid off their trucks and home, and they just still come out and truck and got this nice, well taken care of W900. They drive them for the style and the pride, of course, because they made it. Yep. So they're successful and they want to show it. That's cool, right? But also the pre-2003 W900s had the great pre-emission motors inside of them that we've been talking about. So you see, we're looking at like different skeleton structures, so to speak, with these same pre-emission motors in them that give a lot of these trucks their great reputations in the first place. The new Kenworths are cool, but as you can tell, I'm a little more biased against this, especially 2008 to 2028. Those 10 years, but even down to 2004. If I'm going down that low, I'd rather just go ahead and get like 2003 or something if possible. 2003, or I go down to 97 and skip ABS and all that. But hey. The newer Kenworths mostly have the ISX 870, 871, 2250, 2350, which we've been already talking about, and or a Packard motor. Yep. So I think now maybe the brand new ones are coming with X15 Cummins, but maybe probably still Packard motors. Something to look into. But yeah, maybe it's a new one with X15, if going new. So the pros, of course, right here are back to having access to the TRP brand for aftermarket prices, having access to both Peterbilt and Kenworth network for parts. The T600 and the W9 were very popular pre-emission trucks. Did very well. Pretty good, pretty well resale value. The Kenworth, especially, well, the W900 more so, but the T600s, they can still hold their own. Then we got the T2000s too. I didn't write about the T2000s, but that's another one that had the pre-emission motors. They don't hold the resale value as well, but they do. Yeah, actually, they do well. They stay holding their value right around 15 to 20,000 for one with a decent pre-emission motor. They get a little rattled up too, but seem to get the job done for a lot of guys. The T2000, something a little bit more aerodynamic, in between like the T600 and the W9. Cons, some of their designs are going to have reduced road visibility, slightly lower fuel mileage, and since it's made by Packard, and given my experience with Peterbilt, I would really have to check the wiring inside and out to make sure that it meets my, hey, the wire's got to be protected standards. I don't want to buy trucks that has like the fuse box outside, preferably not. I'd like to, just look at the overall wiring. If I'm real picky, maybe I want to even like pull this. I want to see what it looks like, because when I look behind the dashboard and the wires look really messy or whatever, and just stuff all over the place, and the wires aren't at the very least covered well with wire loom outside, especially important wires that are going in and out of the ECM and through the firewall. Those always need to be covered, with layers of protection, including, the thick wire loom, thick enough wire loom for it, with, different spots of electrical tape, and preferably like the $3 or $4 roll stuff, the one that's a little bit thicker, heavy duty, like the 3M type stuff. So that's what I mean by protect the wire standard, and just wasn't super impressed with the 387 that I owned for 5 years or so. So it just makes me a little bit more inclined to take a look, right? So Volvo, let's do Volvo, right? So Volvo does seem to get a weird, negative reputation in our industry for some reason, right? Maybe at one time, I said here, men conspired together and decided Volvos just weren't manly enough, right? Something. Once the seed got planted, it grew wild, and now we got people saying they don't like Volvos, and if you ask them why, maybe they don't even know. But they just say something like, oh yeah, they don't like them, and like, you should get a real truck like a Peterbilt, right? So, but these are usually the guys that also, probably don't really much know, especially with these quick little like shout out, like, you should just rah 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 type of answer, right? But it's all to be with a grain of salt. And on the same token, it's okay that some guys have an opinion that they don't like a Volvo, right, or any other truck. It's just personal preference. But to say somebody's not manly because of it, no, hey, come on. But over time, Volvos have made their way into being perceived as the truck for the, and I put in quotations here, the lazy flip-flop, foot on the dashboard, no tool having truck driver. But yeah, and also that Volvos can carry a negative rep for being the truck of new truck drivers who are who have immigrated into our country to drive trucks, right? Guys from all around come to America to drive trucks too. Yeah. So though this is true to an extent, hey, we are all Americans now. Let's just get over it, right? Keep it moving. Keep America free, right? As long as we're staying on track, then let's just give each other space. I just think that some of the older truck drivers are doing what they can to preserve, trucking culture, and they get the trucking culture they remember of people helping each other out, giving each other space, having tools and sharing tools with each other. I don't know, stuff like that, talking on the radio. But then again, one thing they have to also understand too is though that there's a lot more trucks on the road. Places are tighter, regulations are stricter. As far as we had deregulation, but we have, as far as FMCSA, it's a lot more strict. With as far as vehicle maintenance and just different knick-knack paperworks and stuff, and it's so that it should just be a continuation of culture, sharing of culture, so we got new people coming into the industry all the time, and they have new ambition, and they want to come and take their shot in this truck driving, and I think we should just be here to to assist, like this whole H2ST is. And but we see a lot of that lack of assistance because of just cultural differences and different stereotypes and stipulations that have been basically programmed into certain individuals, right? So that's where we need to all do our part to always make sure that we're making the trucking collective culture better, while carrying the common sense and decency of the culture that was already built for us, right? So we'll do our best to take, the common sense, because there's a lot of common sense in trucking and decency and cool stuff that, that's already been built into trucking culture, as far as, being helpful and carrying tools and, helping each other get out of jams and stuff like that. And sharing the knowledge, about how to fix stuff or how to get better insurance rates, more competitive freight, whatever it is. Real truckers help their fellow truckers, right? And if they need help, real truckers have, good, positive respect to each other at the truck stops while driving. We give this person at least, a shot or two to back up real quick, but if they're taking too long, especially if it's in the middle of the day or something, it's trucks are out here working. The truck stops that have some silly designs sometimes, but it might slide on through then, but not just all rampaging through the truck stop and stuff. We are the travelers. Real truckers do what they can to not make messes at places, right? We make places better by the work we do and by the stories and smiles we share. Yeah, that's like some poetry right there, I guess. But yeah, we just do our best to leave places better. And we share our stories and smiles, and exchange value, exchange, we're the travelers, make stuff better, huh? Now that is out the way, let's talk Volvo. Yep. So Volvo, of course, is a European brand. They do things a little different than its American competitors. A lot of Volvo parts that we buy will be made in Sweden or other countries in Europe. A lot of the American-made trucks parts will be made in Mexico. I found higher quality and more pride, like quality control and integrity built into the parts that I get from Volvo compared to PACCAR. Volvos have the best interiors in my opinion, hands down. The big full-size sleepers sometimes even have desk at the bottom so that can, there's like a desk with two-sided seats, like a coffee table style. Great for like laptop, computer, drawing, anything creative. Stand up, upright instead of one to like sit right in the bed. It can fold onto a bed, or you have the bed upstairs. So they build these interiors to accommodate the lifestyle of someone who stays on the road a lot and lives in their truck. The other big companies have got better over the years, but they just don't seem to get it like Volvo does. Even though some of the old W900s had these studio sleepers with these huge like couches in the back, yeah, those are pretty cool. But Volvo definitely kills it in this department. I've already mentioned the Generation 1 Volvos being my personal choice and favorite, and that is a choice of many owner-operators that are, I guess you could say, in the know or have experience with them. Like, you'll see them in a lot of different hub cities. I would not go for a Gen 2 Volvo, or really any Volvo with a Volvo motor other than the D12. Or the one Gen 1 Volvo. Well, or maybe some of the early Gen 2s that have the Detroits, if some of those combinations are available. I think it's the D13 that has had the negative reputation for leaky injector cups that have to get done over and over again, costing $1,000 to fix, and they seem to happen, pretty often. I really also like the fact that my main fuse panel is inside my cab, in my dashboard. So the wiring standard, I like the wiring standard, is nice. All my wires are numbered. They got like 901, 901, 901 all the way down, and I have the wiring diagrams, and I post a link to them in this maintenance chapter of this section. Not of this chapter, but the maintenance chapter of this whole book. So the numbers are wired, they're bundled together, they look nice, they come around, and they all go to a fuse panel inside the truck, out, away from the weather, condensation, heat, and all that stuff. So the wires aren't rubbing, they won't chafe and like rub on something and like ground out. Of course double check, but from my experience, it's night and day from on my Peterbilt. How tightly wired everything is, and it gives me a lot more confidence to take my truck all around the country, because we can have this big motor, transmission, differentials, but if we don't have the electricity signals going in and out, then it's not going to be able to communicate. So our pros are very nice interior, great turning radius. I love the way the Volvo turns. The Generation 1 Volvos, VN&Ls, in my opinion, are rock solid. And the Volvos do ride really smooth. I do enjoy the ride of the Volvo. So let's talk about the cons. Volvos aren't cool to many in the trucking business and world. Prices on Volvo parts can be pretty pricey and even ridiculous at times. Like this little line is like $150, and it's like, whoa, come on. But it's like it's got a certain type of fitting on it that like hose stores don't want to make or don't have. So that's like some of the benefits of like American-made truck, because different things you can get made. I can still get stuff made on my Volvo truck, but like, yeah, especially if you have a Volvo motor too. Excuse me. And Volvo motors can only be fixed at Volvo dealers most of the time, unless you just are in certain hub cities where shops see Volvo motors a lot and they learn how to work on them, stuff like that. So I like the Generation 1 Volvo for a pre-emission truck. And bonus points if you can find one that has a top bunk on it, so you can have two bunks. So that way, if you do want to travel with say, your significant other, friend, family, somebody you want to take them on a trip, especially when you have your own authority. It's a lot easier to take people on. You just write a slip. Just write a slip of a carrier authorization form. So I would do that a lot, but I'm in my mid-roof and I took my passenger seat out, so I don't often bring passengers, but I might look into it again later on. But the double bunk bed, there's so much space to do more storage or sleep upstairs, or even have like coffee table area downstairs, which I like. That it encourages more upright, and just not just going always straight to the bed and stuff like that. So we talk about Mack trucks. So these Mack trucks are also owned and ran by Volvo, if you didn't know. A lot of the same things I mentioned about Volvo are true to Mack as well. Macks tend to be more popular in local and regional operations. You'll see a lot of Mack dump trucks and cement mixers, but not so many Class 8 full-size semis. But they are out here, though, of course. I just don't have a lot of info on the older ones or the newer ones, but people seem to enjoy the Macks. So I just say study, study, study. If a deal comes up for you on the Mack truck, just check the year, check what type motor it has, and etc. Get as much info as you can. Let me make sure I'm recording. Okay, cool. Get as much info as you can. A lot of people that have Macks that I've met have loved owning those trucks and working in those trucks. But as with any truck 2004 and up, be very wary of the condition of its emission system, the components and the wear it may have put on the motor. Alright, so let's keep it moving into next what's called, we got gear ratios. And remember, I'm just reading this and going through it all. I know it's quite a bit. That's why I'm just reading it slow to let it soak in. So, but it's always right here to read again or listen again. So after listening to it one good time, it'll be a lot easier to skim read through here, because you'll know, like, where's that one section when Andrew was talking about Freightliner trucks or Detroit 60 motor or gear ratios. So it'll be in one of the chapter sections. But so I'm going to continue here to talk about gear ratio. So this is another important thing to consider is gear ratio. Gear ratio is the way our differentials are geared up. Kind of like a 10-speed bike versus a 13-speed bike, or etc. It's not such a great analogy, but with different ratios, you'll be at different RPMs when you reach your cruising speed. So say for me, my cruising speed is 60 to 62 miles an hour. So I have I have a 3.73 gear ratio, which is, for me, is perfect for me, because at with my gear ratio at 3.73, that puts me in my motor's sweet spot, which is 1500 RPMs when I do my cruising speed of 60 to 62 miles an hour. So when I'm cruising at 62, my RPMs are just sweet spotting it at 1500. It's just whoa, whoa, not too low, like whoa, not too high, like it's just whoa, just free flowing right there in that 1500. So you'll have to find the right gear ratio that fits the speed you want to drive and the motor's preferred cruising RPM range. To find the suggested highway speed RPM, you might have to do some digging on the internet. There should be some resources that can be found online that will show you how to do formulas to find the right gear ratio for your desired speed. So, but do what you can to not overlook gear ratios. Very important with how everything works together. Gear ratios play an important role in fuel mileage, transmission health, how long your transmission is going to last and how well it does. Differential health, same thing, and motor health. If your gear ratio isn't right for your speed, you may be going 62 miles an hour, but your engine is lugging down in the low 1300 RPM zone, causing extra pressure on your motor. So we got to find the math for what ratio is best for your desired speed. So like I said, my desired speed 60, 62, and I did some research by looking around Cummins literature and Truckerz report to find out right around 1500, and just by listening to my motor. I've spent so much time with my M14 motor that I know right around 1500, and from the literature too, is the preferred highway RPM. And so with 3.73, 62, it lines up just right. 62, 63 miles an hour. So let's discuss here, just to get this conversation started a little bit, brand new trucks versus middle-aged trucks versus older trucks. This is an age-old debate, of course, in trucking. Everybody seems to have their own opinion. Some make really great points, and they make nice results. Others make good points but not so good results, and others just don't make any really great points or great results at all. So I'll do my best to sum it up from my opinion and my perspective. Page 71. Brand new trucks are nice. They smell great. And they look fantastic, right? They got a brand new frame and brand new suspension. They got a brand new electrical system, and they have a brand new motor. They also come in at the price tag of $100,000 to $150,000 or so. So a $100,000 truck will cost around $2,000 a month for 5 years. A $150,000 truck will cost more like $2,700 a month for 5 years, plus insurance, right? For whatever insurance, especially if you have your own authority, or but definitely physical damage for full cost, and gap insurance too. So the newer and higher your truck's adjusted value, the more insurance will cost, right? Physical damage and gap insurance. Gap insurance is the insurance that we have to carry on high dollar truck loans to cover the remaining costs you owed to the bank in case of a truck and a total loss. Yeah. So with a new truck, we're looking at anywhere from maybe $2,200 to $3,000 a month in just truck notes and physical damage and gap insurance. If you have your own authority, you'll also be paying for the liability and cargo insurance, which could be another $1,000 to $2,500, just depending on what's going on. Between insurance and truck notes, if you had your own authority, you'd be paying anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month just in your trucking business. And that's not even paying for anything else. As far as low bore subscriptions, 2290, IRP, stuff like that. 5,000. So there's a lot of overhead. What if there's more home responsibilities, like different bills, rent, car notes, insurance, kids, and other obligations? Right? Let's be real. Let's keep it real. Most owner-operators, if they're leased to a company, don't make much more than $2,500 a week after fuel and company deductions. Now, as an independent with your own authority, if you're only doing $10K a month, based off of what seems to be a strong average from the hundreds of people, if not thousands of people that I've talked to over the years, that leaves maybe $7,000 to $5,000 a month which when broken down weekly, that's like $1,700 to $1,200 a week. And and I ask, like, seriously, like, is it worth it to have that new truck, to make this type of $1,700? Now, a company driver with the right company and operation can do just as well as that, with benefits and way less, way less responsibility. As a leased operator who doesn't pay for liability and cargo insurance up front, it would be in the $8,000 to $7,000 range per month. So, $2,000 to $1,750 a week, not bad, but still not great. And I'm lenient on the $2,500 a week. I meet a ton of guys out here not making much more than $1,500 to $2,000. Many do make much more if they, get themselves into the right operation, right? So we have not considered the fact that new trucks, break down too, and there will be things that, you need to pay for that is not covered by warranty. Sometimes big things, sometimes small things, but buying a new truck does not just automatically excuse us from the world of mechanics and maintenance. Sure, some guys get a new truck and do fine with very little mechanical issues, and people also get new trucks and can't seem to stay off the tow hooks because of all the crazy emission issues, right? So when we look at all the new trucks that the big fleet companies own that are on the side of the road, yeah, we can see that when we look at a lot of the big truck, the fleets, when we see their trucks on the side of the road, it's just usually emission related. I would hope those new trucks are not already having motor problems. Once you factor in physical damage, insurance gap, insurance, truck note, repairs, it's just not a very attractive business model to me. Those numbers of income I just ran also depend on working every week with no time off. Not only is that not realistic, what if you want to take time off, go on a trip, or maybe you want to relax over the winter months because it's just so cold and crazy out there with the weather? All I got to say is, if you're going to get a brand new truck, I hope you have a very profitable operation. I hope you know what you're doing, and I hope that you have a team driving operation or something like hauling explosives and ammunition at Landstar or something like that to make it all worth it. Now, the sad part is when a lot of these guys finish or get close to paying their truck off, they go right back and trade it in for another one, repeating the whole process again. To me, this is like being a prisoner to my own business. Maybe this will fit your personality, right? So maybe you just want to stay on the road nonstop. Maybe you're in your 40s now. Maybe you're in your 50s now, and you're like, hey, the kids are grown. We're going to sell the house. We're just going to keep it rolling. We're going to get a nice truck, and we're just going to live on the road. Okay, well, cool. I respect that commitment. Then that makes sense. Just please make sure you really do the math and really know the truck and the motor you're getting before you pull the trigger. And not just a little sales brochure, but just do what you can to collect as much information from actual owners on truck forums and truck stops and etc. So I'm not exactly trying to steer you away from getting a new truck if that's what you really desire, of course. If you desire it, I'm not here to convince you otherwise, but I'm just highlighting some of the different facts, and that the large increase of overhead doesn't necessarily mean maintenance costs will go all the way down, and that the higher overhead cost becomes a higher liability, on the road. And the catch-22 is the more you're on the road, the more you wear and tear your equipment. So, it's just the higher the overhead, it tends to be more of a liability, especially when we're dealing with this trucking business. Now, middle-aged trucks are sometimes the only way to go, that you can get into this business in the beginning. Say, for instance, like how me in the beginning, I couldn't afford a truck cash. Then I wasn't going to be able to get a new truck. So my option was, because banks don't tend to finance older pre-emission trucks, that left with like a middle-aged truck, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old truck. The main problem with middle-aged trucks is the emission systems are usually shot, and it puts these trucks in a high risk of expensive maintenance repairs right away. Yeah, $400,000 to $600,000 on a 2008 or newer truck is just a nightmare waiting to happen, in my opinion. So maybe we get off fine for a while, maybe drive 2 weeks and end up with a 10K emissions bill. That still didn't really fix the truck. Let me bring that back. Maybe we get off fine for a while, drive 2 weeks or 2 months, so it doesn't matter really, but with a $10,000 emissions bill, that still really doesn't fix the truck. And as I mentioned earlier, we're dealing with $3,000 filters, $4,000 turbos, increased labor costs, and soot in the oil. And it's a tough cookie to crack, but you can still do it and be successful in a middle-aged truck. You just got to be hypersensitive to everything you do with it. The way you drive, the way you idle, the way you do preventative maintenance, and etc. are all things that you need to be super aware of. Things can get expensive quick when you're just throwing parts at an emissions issue, right? The crazy thing is, too, many of these 2008 and newer motors don't make it past 800,000 miles before needing a rebuild. Truck prices go up and down according to the demand in the truck buying market. Usually when the freight is really strong, the used truck prices are higher, of course, because more people are wanting to buy trucks. So, that's one way to buy a truck on a more of a discount, is when the freight market is not really like super hot and stuff like that. If you already have one of these trucks that I'm speaking of here, and all this red, it's okay, but we just gotta buckle down and get maintenance awareness. Maintenance awareness. Be consistent. One thing for sure is you got to be consistent in doing the EGR tune-up. Drive slower when possible. Don't idle your motor when possible. Find a solution to idling if possible. Change the emission system sensors out if you haven't already, which is the EGR, differential pressure sensor. I have them all listed right here. Intake manifold air pressure sensor, exhaust back pressure sensor, DPF differential pressure sensor, which is down there at the can, a filter, and there will be a couple more if you have the 2012 or newer truck for your SCR and DEF. Do what you can to learn the parts of your motor and how they all work together, know how the systems work, and so you can put your destiny into your hands and be proactive, right? Don't just wait for problems to happen. Beat the problems by paying attention and staying ahead of them, and by not helping to create an environment for them to exist. Yeah, that's a little good one to read back right here though, but a lot of it has to do with just doing these EGR tune-ups, right? Keeping the sensors new every about a year and a half to 2 years, especially if you have a 2008 or newer truck, and just cleaning the soot out. Just go to YouTube and type in RAW's EGR tune-up. But we'll talk about it in the maintenance section more as well. I know it can be tough in the beginning, but if you don't have cash, the cash already to buy like a pre-emissions truck just outright. But speaking from my opinion, I would not want to own one of these middle-aged trucks. So there's still an option. Maybe just wait a little bit more to buy one, or get a business line of credit or something instead. But I would not want to own a 2008 to 2018. The parts are just too expensive, and the emission system makes the truck too unreliable for me and my taste, so to speak. It would throw a huge wrench into my lifestyle and how I operate. I did it for years, and I'm cool, I'm fine. I don't want to go back to paying $3,000 for a turbo, $3,000 for filters that clog up and become unreliable. I don't want to be paying all that money for parts on the motor that I'm constantly destroying by creating soot in my oil through the emission system. Some people, of course, tell me that would tell me that I'm overreacting, and maybe I was or am. But hey, this is the thing about me in the trucking business, and with trucking business in general, right? The freight is here for us to haul. It's up to each individual. How will you choose to run your operation? And that's what it's all about. That's why I just lay it all out from all the things that I've collected. So, you could be like, hey, I got this missing piece, and put it all together. Now I know how you want to run it, right? And that's what it's all about. Having all these different options, so you can put them together to make an operation that you'll be proud of and be, happy about. So this is older trucks. Older trucks are an option that many never entertain, right? A lot of people get stuck in the mentality that, if it's not new, then it's a junk truck. We'll hear a lot of like fleet owners of like 5 and 10 and 15 trucks, especially fleet owners that's never really driven a truck before, or never really experienced what it's like to sleep in a hot truck or a cold truck, or have like crazy weather issues, that going up and down mountains and tricky places and times and close times with death. Oop, it just did Gregory. But that's usually where this will come from. Like, if it's not a new truck, then it's a junk. But hey, to each his own. In many cases, this couldn't be further from the truth. There is a reason why many successful guys out here, especially solo owner operators, they keep their old trucks because they work. they work. I call these trucks money makers. These guys don't care if their paint job is a little off, or because they make money in these trucks, right? They drive up and down the road in a truck that's paid for itself over and over again. Think back to my first chapter when I ended up clearing a little over $14,000 in those 2 weeks and 2 days. I paid $10,000 for my truck originally. Yes, I put a couple more thousand into it before it was ready for me to haul freight with, but it paid for itself in just those 2 weeks. The real question is, do you know how many times I've already done this? Do you know how many times, maybe not $14K in 2 weeks per se, but how many times I collect $10,000 in a matter of just a couple weeks? So, and my cost to rebuild my motor is right around $10,000. So when we do the math on it, like, what operation would you rather be in? Really, it's like every time I go out, I'm making my truck's worth. To do that in like a $65,000 truck, it would take $65,000, and that would take 32 months or so, 2.5 months. So it's just something to consider. Now, of course, let me give you the reality check on older pre-emission trucks. It's not all sunshine and riding off into the sunset yet. Though your motor is more than likely to hold strong, and you definitely won't have any emission issues holding you back. But older trucks are more prone to be faced with suspension items like leaf springs and little parts here and there that are related with suspension that are going to need attention. Because, it's been riding around for a while, right? But the good thing is, once you fix a lot of these little things, they'll be good to go for another long time. These are, chassis parts that last forever, pretty much. This is why doing a great pre-purchase inspection is necessary. If you can catch certain things early, you can negotiate your deal better and fix those things early on before you get going. Cool. So that's a big chapter right here. We just did chapter 5. So we're going to talk about it in summary. All right. Then, of course, you can come back and revisit it. Read it on your own speed. And then, talk about it further. So, in summary, I did not know any of this when I first got my business started in trucking. Like I said, I just knew I wanted a Peterbilt because it rode good, right? How naive. But that's why I know I'm doing a good thing by taking the time to write all this and now record it and promote my book. Because if my book is helping you get ahead, and my book has shown you anything that you didn't already know, please, tell friends and other people you meet about the info you learn. Tell them about me and my book and my program, and to go ahead and get one. And because all this hoarding of information, trucking information, stops with me, I'm letting it all collect here in this one place. There's a saying I like that goes like this: the less you know about something, the more of a risk it is. And it also goes to say that the more you know about something, the less of a risk it is. So risk more so is the unknown. By having this information, you can add way more strength into your strategy by lowering your risk. By lowering your risk, because the more you know about what you're getting into, the less of a risk. So we just gotta do what we can to, just use our head and be patient. The truck you choose will be one thing that you spend a lot of time with. So it's like a matter of not rushing this process. Find the motor, keep researching, keep asking questions, keep investigating. Walk up to the guys at the truck stops who are owner operators and just, have some conversation with them. Tell them you're still in the research stage on which motor and truck to choose, and maybe get this person's opinion and make note of it. Look at what motor they have and just pretend for a moment if it was yours. Would you want to work on this motor? Is there too much emission stuff in the way? Does it look like user friendly to you? That'll give you more of a feel also of which option to choose. Dependability, the cost of parts, the ease to work on it yourself, and fuel efficiency are the main things that we're looking for. There's not really one answer fits all. There are many variables like how somebody took care of the truck that will determine whether or not it's a great deal. Craigslist, the truck paper, the classifieds section on truckersreport.com, raws.com, and good old-fashioned word of mouth and looking for private sales in your area are probably going to be the best places, in my opinion, to find this type of truck that I'm talking about. I would almost never get a truck from a used truck from a dealer that resells big fleet trucks. Please stay away from recently acquired used fleet trucks at the truck dealers. These could be old Snyder trucks, used Swift trucks, US Express, USA, Knight trucks, or whomever. But if you must go this route, the dealerships do provide an opportunity to get in early, but due to financing, aim to get one that has an APU on it, preferably since day one, like a truck from Prime. All right, Prime equips all their trucks with APUs on it from very beginning. So idling an emission motor every night especially really kills these newer motors. Produces a lot of soot. At least with the APU, you know that it probably idled way less than a truck without an APU. Also, the APU itself is about a $10,000 value when they're new. So, you're going to get some more value out of having an APU on. Inspect your truck really well before buying. Get to know the owner. Find any red flags and no-goes before you do the deal. See if there's anything that just, that's not making these lists that we're talking about. Find any issues, and if they're not deal breakers, just ask for a lower price. This is where cash is king is, or having, business financing, if you have your own access to cash or capital. You can knock thousands off the asking price if you don't need a bank and can close on the truck fast with cash, cashier's checking, etc. So if you're listening to this recording, that means you also have access to pre-purchase inspection. Originally they were sold separately. So the video, this video modules now all come together to have full access to pre-purchase inspection. So definitely check out pre-purchase inspection. It's included, and you can see a lot of pictures, and talk a lot more about like really getting into the state of mind to buy. Here's an important tip: do not buy a truck with cash or a cashier's check or at all until you physically see the title in your hand and hold it. And make sure, especially when we're doing a private sale, and just make sure the name that's on the title matches the name that's on who's selling it to you, on their driver's license, right? And make sure to draw up a bill of sale. So you can just get a default bill of sale from the internet, or you can just literally on a piece of paper just write bill of sale and say Andrew's Method on this day, August 25th, 2021, and buying this 2000 Volvo VNL VIN number XYZ23456,000 for the price of $10,500. And then at the bottom there's two signatures, boom, my signature, seller's signature. And then then you can write in some more stipulations first, like I like to write in like something like have another one where it's like and they fill their name in, declare to be the rightful owner of this vehicle and own the title, own the vehicle outright, clear of liens. If I am proved to be not the owner, I assume all responsibilities of transaction reversal to Andrew Higgins.